Hi, everyone. It's Kat. Thanks so much for joining me today. I've been absent for the past couple weeks again because unfortunately we've had a lot of illness going through our house, as I know has been the case for many people. And as a result, I actually ended up with laryngitis, which is still clearing up, but I figure I'm in a good enough spot that I can at least come back and start recording some more videos for you. So, in line with the illness theme, since I know that this is really widespread right now, especially with so many respiratory illnesses circulating, I thought I'd talk about two elements of Ayurvedic practices that can be really helpful when trying to keep your respiratory, well, probably primarily sinus, but obviously that's related to the respiratory system. But two practices of Ayurveda that are really helpful in keeping the sinus area healthy and also can be useful, at least one of them, when you are ill or dealing with congestion related to, like I said, illness or allergies as well. So the first one of these you're probably familiar with because I feel like this has become more common in Western culture, and I know has actually been recommended to me by some doctors in recent years, and that's called Neti, or you may be familiar with the Neti pot. Most of them look similar to this. I've seen some other ones that are plastic that are look more like a kettle, although my recommendation would be to stick with one that's ceramic. That's what this one's made out of. Um, so if you're not familiar with neti or a neti pot, the idea behind this is similar to to saline, like the saline sprays, but this is a little more thorough, I would say, than your saline sprays, at least as far as I know. So, the traditional saline sprays that you find in the store, come in a little can and it'll kind of shoot some saline, which is, a salt solution up into your nasal passageways, and usually that will loosen up some of the mucus. I find that ever since I started doing the neti pot, which was recommended to me because I used to really suffer with frequent sinus infections, especially in the winter and the cold and flu season. This, I would say, does a more thorough clean out of your congestion. It could feel a little gross, especially if you're not used to it. But this really is helpful for relief when you're really stuffed up. And then also regular use of it during cold and flu or allergy season can also just help to keep things cleared out and prevent things settling in and turning into an actual infection. So the way that you use these, if you're not familiar, is like I said, most of them are ceramic, and that's the type I would recommend. So you would fill this, not all the way, but like probably three-quarters of the way with hot water. Usually what I do is I will boil it, but then I obviously let it cool down before I use it because you don't want to be putting boiling hot water into your sinuses. So you boil the water and then you would fill your pot, like I said, maybe three-quarters of the way full. And then you're going to put a salt solution in there. Now you can make your own. Or you can buy them in pre-made packets. I tend to buy the packets just because it's easier. It's already dosed out for me. The brand that I tend to use is called Neil Med. You can find these in most CVS's or online. They look like this. They usually come in a bag, so you might get like 100 of these at a time. But the ingredients in them are sodium chloride, otherwise known as salt, and sodium bicarbonate, otherwise known as baking soda. So I have made like mixed up a huge bag of just salt and baking soda before and used it that way. But if you are someone that prefers not to have to do DIY or worry about ratios or anything like that and just want the ease of the packet, like I said, you can find these. They're pretty readily available nowadays. And so what you would do is once you've got your boiling water in here, open up your packet or your bag. If you mixed up on your own, you're going to pour that in, stir it up, and then let it sit. Like I said, you don't want to use it right away. Sometimes I would say I usually have to let it sit maybe at least an hour. Sometimes I'll even throw it in the fridge just to cool it down a little bit. And then once it's reached a reasonable temperature, I mean, it actually can feel nice if it's still a little bit warm, as long as it's not burning hot. But then what you do, and I can't really demonstrate this and talk at the same time, so I'm not going to do that, but I'll just sort of talk you through how it would be done, is you would put this into, one of your nostrils and then lean forward. You can do this over a sink, in the shower, whatever's easiest. So then you're kind of leaning forward with it in the nostril and then tipping to the side. And then usually to get it going, especially if you're congested, you kind of have to kind of like sniff it in. And then basically it's going to go up and over and then run back out the other side. And so I'll try to do, half on one side and then I switch, do the same thing, pop it in the nostril, bend forward, tilt, sniff, 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 and run it out. Like I said, it's a little bit messy. It might feel a little gross, especially if you do have a lot of congestion, because what it will do is it will loosen up that mucus and it just kind of comes pouring out. But as somebody, like I said, who has previously really suffered from sinus infections, just tend to be prone to a lot of respiratory stuff. It is such a relief when it like helps to break up all the congestion. And like I said, it can also be done if you feel a cold coming on, or if you just know you're prone to congestion during cold and flu season or during allergy season, you can actually use this as a regular maintenance uh, process if you want to do that. The one thing you do need to be careful is, because there is salt in the solution, is it can then dry out your nasal passages. So for some people that have a more oily constitution, um, it might be okay to do it, let's say even on a daily basis. And certainly when I've been really congested, I have done it maybe for several days in a row just to break everything up and get it out. But you don't want to dry out your nasal passages, right? Because that causes other issues that could lead to infection and disease as well. So you definitely want to listen to your body and figure out if it's getting to be too much. And for someone like me, I tend to just be more dry. I get dry skin, dry hair, dry mouth really easily. So for someone like me, I would really be cautious and only use this maybe as necessary. I wouldn't probably use this as much as like a regular maintenance thing unless I was smack dab in the middle of allergy season and really needed it. Because like I said, I just have a tendency to get dried out. I'm prone to nosebleeds. So for all those reasons, I would use this more sparingly than somebody that doesn't have the same issues. Now, a second ritual, I guess, that you can use from Ayurveda, and this probably shouldn't be used. I don't believe it's recommended to be used when you are congested. So you probably want to avoid this if you're smack dab in the middle of a cold or a sinus infection or allergies. But something that is great for preventative care is called Nasya oil. Now, you don't necessarily, I bought this from a company called Banyan Botanicals. They supply a lot of Ayurvedic products, and I really like them. So I tried this oil out a few years ago, really liked it, and have continued to purchase it. This oil actually contains some Ayurvedic herbs as well that can be really helpful for the health of your sinuses. And they also say that they can promote clarity and things like that, which is very nice, a nice little side benefit. But Nasya, the practice of Nasya, which is a really advised to be or recommended as a daily practice in Ayurveda, can just be done with simple oil. So I believe this is sesame, untoasted sesame oil, and then the herbs are, kind of, I'm blanking on the word, but like they kind of just let the herbs get in there and soak and everything. But this process can be done and I have done it just with regular organic untoasted sesame oil, which you can actually find it at quite a few supermarkets. So you don't necessarily have to go out and buy a special oil unless you want to try it. But the way Nasya works, and again, this is something I cannot demonstrate and talk about at the same time, so I'll just sort of talk you through. And then if anybody's interested in a demonstration video, just let me know and I can always do that. Excuse me, on another occasion. But like I said, since I have a tendency towards dryness of the sinuses, this has been a lifesaver for me because it does keep this area like here, up here, very well moisturized and helps. Again, in Ayurveda, dryness is considered sort of a pathway right to disease. So keeping my sinuses nicely moisturized and healthy has made a huge difference for me in terms of not getting as many respiratory and sinus related illnesses as I did in the past before I started doing this. So, like I said, Nasya can actually be done on a daily basis. And the way that it works is you would take a dropper. So, even if you're getting the regular untoasted sesame seed oil, you'd want to make sure you have a dropper like this to use. And then you would just, get some of the oil into the tube. You would lean back. The important thing is you want to be leaning as far back as possible while doing this, because otherwise it's just going to pour back out and it won't really serve its purpose. So ideally, if you have time, you could actually just go lay on your bed and like all the way back and then tilt your chin up a bit. But sometimes if I don't have time to do that, I may just kind of do it in the bathroom and then just tilt my chin up as far as possible and try to hold that position for a couple minutes. Because what you're doing is, like I said, and I'm going to squeeze all my oil out of here so I'm not doing this while on camera, excuse me, is you tilt up and then you're going to just drop about maybe 3 to 5 drops in each nostril. And then so I drip some on my face. And then you want to kind of, you may just, if you want, quickly lean back forward or do it like this. You're just going to maybe pinch your nostrils and kind of go sniff, 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 because the idea is that you want to get the oil into your sinus passageways under your eyes and ideally up, in the forehead area as well. And then once you feel like you kind of sniffed it, let it kind of drain into these areas, you're going to give yourself a nice massage. And this is really nice too, because it's combining, preventative health care, but also some self-care too, right? And maybe giving you a little pause in your crazy morning routine to do something really nourishing for your body. So what you're going to do is with your head tilted back, sniff, sniff, sniff. And then you're just kind of massaging the oil in. And that might sound funny because it's actually inside your body instead of like on your face. But you just kind of massage it in, which can feel really, really nice. It's very relaxing. And like I said, you want to spend at least a couple minutes doing this so the oil can really get into the sinus passageways, both under your nose and up into your forehead area. And like I said, the benefit of this practice is that it really helpful in preventing disease of the sinus area, especially because you're keeping these areas moisturized. And also the oil itself, similar to mucus, can capture some of like the foreign particles that you may breathe in that would lead to congestion and possibly infection. And so in that way too, it can help prevent or at least reduce the incidence of sinus issues. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, these are 2 practices that are highly recommended by Ayurveda, and I have definitely made use of them. The Neti for probably 10 plus years, because I actually had a nurse practitioner recommend it to me one year when I had about 4 sinus infections back to back. She said, the minute you feel it coming on, she recommended some other, protocols as well, but she definitely said, get this going to keep the gunk flowing, because it's when it settles into the sinus passageways is when when it's going to lead to an infection. So I've been doing that probably maybe 12 years at this point, and then the Nasya maybe about 4 or 5 years. And I've loved both of those practices, and I can tell a huge difference between when I've been doing them and when I haven't been doing them. And I can tell you that it's very worth it to be doing them on a regular basis, especially during a time of year where we're getting lots of germs, and especially this year when there's so much respiratory illness out there. So like I said, if you'd like to see some actual demo videos of Neti or Nasya, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you'll give this a try and come back and let me know how it goes. Have a great rest of your day and have a great week ahead. See you soon. Bye.